Okay, there we go. We're live on Facebook. So this is Love Speaks Love. Welcome, everybody. I'm Denise. I'm your host. And Love Speaks Love is a platform to share a conversation with one or more guests. Today's guest is Mira Star. And this is a platform to awaken, to join hearts, and it's speaking soul to soul, heart to heart, with the intention of building community and unity consciousness. And it's a joining together of hearts. So I'm just going to check if we are, it says that we're live, so I'm just going to check. Yes. Okay. Just turn that around. There we go. Okay, so without further ado, I am going to bring in Mira Star. Apologies that we're a few minutes late. We've been having a few technical difficulties. And it feels like the energy is really strong already. So, do you want to just, I'm going to unmute you, sweetheart. I think you might just need to okay, you're muted still, but there you are.
There we are.
Yay! So it's been quite an adventure trying to get us both on here, going live somewhere, but not on my page. But here we are. So welcome, Mira Star. I'm going to just start with a little heart-to-heart meditation first of all, just a visualization to bring us into our heart space. Actually, I'm going to just share it first, because otherwise I will forget. So just
we shared over here. We shared to Ripple.
There we go. Okay, it's not. I'm not going to share it to Love Speaks Love until we finish. Okay, so. So I invite you to close your eyes. And bring your awareness into your heart space in the center of your chest. Breathing in love, breathing out love. And as we breathe out love, just visualizing that love is spreading out all over the planet. Connecting all of the hearts here on the call now live. Connecting to all of the hearts that will be with us on the replay and on YouTube. And connecting our hearts with the heart of Gaia, with the heart of the sun, and with the heart of Creator. And visualizing a beautiful web of golden light and love, weaving its way all around the planet now, creating a beautiful grid of love. Connecting our hearts to the crystalline grid of energy deep down in the earth. Connecting to the New Earth templates. And as you take a few more long and slow deep breaths, breathing in love and breathing out love. And feeling yourself fully in your body. Connected fully to this physical plane. And just opening your eyes when you're ready. So, Miracle Star, I'm just going to share a few words about this amazing woman. And just to say as well that she interviewed me earlier in the week, and we'll talk a little bit more about why that was. And we just had such a lovely, fun conversation, and we carried on talking for hours afterwards. So it just felt very natural for her to be the guest this week on Love Speaks Love. So she is a transformational spirit embodiment mentor and an international soul journey retreat guide. And she teaches practitioners powerful healing modalities to work at a deeper level with their clients. And she's been working in the field of healing and body work and energy work for 20 plus years, which incidentally, you don't look old enough to have been doing. And she also offers Akashic activations and teaching. And Mira first came to my attention on some shared global healing calls that we've been on. And she has really beautiful light language that she shares, and she has really beautiful, powerful, and gentle energy. Welcome, sweetheart.
Mahalo. Thank you so much. I have no words. I guess that's not such a good thing on an interview, right? It's so fascinating to have to be in the other chair today. So, hello. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure. Okay, so the common question to start with, which is always of interest, is about your awakening journey. So that must have happened quite early for you if you've been working in this field for 20 odd years. Do you feel like you've always been awake, or was there a process of awakening for you? How did that kind of happen, and when?
Good question. Well, interestingly enough, I feel like I came in as a body worker because my family would tell me as a 2- and 3-year-old, I would go around massaging everyone's shoulders at dinner parties and that sort of thing. So it was very interesting and natural for me to slip into body work in my early 20s and train. Yes, just that aspect of working with the body and energy and perceiving energy has been very, very consistent throughout my life. But what has happened through working on the body professionally and working with hundreds and hundreds of bodies, starting kind of in the late 90s, that really shifted the level at which I was experiencing the multidimensionality of everything. And so I would slip into these trance-like spaces or states of being while I was, and you know this well because you and I have a very similar journey, but just moving into these spaces of no time and space, and being almost not even perceiving my body or the body on the table, but just being in these other dimensional spaces. So in terms of linear time, I don't really know beginnings and ends anymore. But in terms of the last 5, 4, 3, 2 years, there's just no comparison as each year progresses between where I'm at and where I was at. And so I don't even really know anymore. But what's interesting is what I do know is there's a space that I reach with some clients, with some body work, where I'm working usually at the head, and they are usually asleep or very deep. They're at a place where they're not clearing their throat and they're not shifting in any way. They've sunk right into the table. And it's probably usually about 30, 35 minutes into the session. And I'll be working at their head, probably craniosacral, but so deep that my hands are just following guidance, divine guidance, and I don't actually know what my hands are doing with my mind. The only thing my mind does at that sort of even an earlier stage than that is kind of fine tune sometimes. So if I'm maybe not completely centered with their center line, I'll get a little sound or a feeling that I need to shift a couple millimeters over, and then everything flows and feels so much more light and shiny and bright, and auras and colors and everything really powerfully shift. So I get these kind of messages, but they're kind of hard to describe in words. But going deeper than that, I get into this real transflict state that I suspect people have words for this, but I don't have those words. And I'm in a place, there's a level, and then there's another level, but there's a place where like there's all this moving snake-like energy that's like light and dark, but so beautiful, and often there's a lot of color, and it can be really fractal-like. And that is very easy to access for me now. I can really just go into a place and close my eyes and I'm there. But it developed slowly. But then there's another space that's beyond that space where there is no me and there is no them. And all there is this gorgeous orb floating above their body. And it's so intricate that I can't see all the intricacies. And I always want to get closer, and then I get snapped out of the space because my mind comes in and says, get closer. But now I know that. So I stay with it and I just observe, and I'm in a space of observance. And there's nothing that exists but that. And it's almost like my whole life has become about that space, in that I want to be there as much as I can, because the person on the table also receives so much benefit when we reach that space together. And they don't necessarily remember the space, but there's a huge difference between the people who wake up. When people wake up or come out of a session and they sit on a chair, and I know we've been in that space, it's profound, the stories they'll tell me, or the things that will come through, or how they feel shifted. And there's so much shift with the other folks, but just like, it's just fascinating. So I've decided that my path right now is moving towards teaching people to weave and work with energy and learn how to work on the body of the self, the friend, the family member, or as a practitioner, and just weave with energy in a way that is what the planet needs and what we all need. It's like how we're all supposed to weave. We're not supposed to just be standing and having a little studio and inviting clients and they pay us and we pay them. It's like everything is supposed to be about this. We go to a dinner party and someone lies down on the floor and we just start working with them. And so that's really how I see the new earth, is just everyone knowing how to weave with energy and weaving with energy. Yes. So yeah, I don't know if that fully answers your question about my awakening journey, but it's fascinating because I don't actually know. I'm very comfortable saying that to you. That's one of my favorite things, is just to say, I don't know.
I think you probably answered about 3 questions in there, actually. That was beautiful. I really loved that. Now, I wanted to just go back to what you were saying about the orb, the golden orb. So that's not with everyone that you see that. That's or is that with everyone?
No, it's very special when it happens. I have seen it in my own meditations, because at one time I thought it was a chakra of theirs, that I was maybe seeing the crown chakra, because I was sitting at, it often happens when I'm sitting at the crown chakra, and my heart space is in their upper crown space. And so I'm often receiving codes. This is like probably going into more detail, but anyhow, there's often like light coming in through my head, and I feel it merge with this point of light in them at my heart. And there's something like, it's like there's a color shift and there's a change because there's two chakras merged at the same place. So it's often in that space. So I was thinking maybe I was seeing either the core star chakra over their belly, which is sort of one chakra that we all share. And really, these are all words. And honestly, I don't know if anyone really truly knows, because it's outside of a space of the mind being able to put anything into words. But yeah, so it's usually like whites and grays and blacks. But it's like when they talk about the million petal lotus at the crown, you know, when you see pictures of that, or so really, yeah, I mean, I'm just going to go deeper and deeper and explore the space and be in observance, and then just try to come closer and closer to having some words to describe. But it's interesting. I don't know. But what I know is that how I feel after and how the other person feels after, just knowing that we've tuned into that space, because it's always ever present. It's always there. But there is a like big leaps and bounds that seem to happen. Wow. So did that fully answer your question? Definitely not with everyone. Anyone who doesn't, you know how there's clients who just don't settle. They either try to chat, or maybe they just keep like kind of shifting and moving, and they just don't, it would never happen with that person when they're deep, just because they really need to be deep. And then I get really deep. And I can get really deep when another person isn't deep, but it just seems like this space doesn't happen.
I hear you on that. And certainly when you do sessions of that nature, you can really feel everything merging as well, can't you? Like the brain waves. So you kind of know how deep they are because you can feel it in yourself as well. It's kind of like you've got that awareness of how deep you are, which is presumably in theta waves as well, if you were to look at it that way, or maybe even gamma. And you can feel how deep they are as well, and you can feel yourself going deeper sometimes when they're really going into that almost sleep space as well. You can feel that within your consciousness.
Absolutely.
And so I'm just trying to fully get a picture of this. So you're at their head generally when this happens, and so they're kind of lying in front of you, and you said it was like over the solar plexus.
It's almost actually over the dantian, the lower dantian.
Right.
But my eyes are closed, so that's where I sense it is the most. And it's interesting because I don't know if you know Barbara Brennan's work. But she speaks about a core star chakra at a certain dimensional level. That's like the deepest dimensional level that humans perceive in the physical. And I don't know if it's the same, but there's times when I've thought maybe that's what it is, because her work seems very similar to my work in terms of how she flows in with energy, because there's so many different ways. Like the biodynamic craniosacral therapists, they go in through the long tide, and then there's another tide, and it's very fascinating how everyone kind of comes to these spaces. So I find it really beautiful how there's so much uniqueness and how everyone works with energy. But yeah, so I mean, that's my passion, is to teach people to, for the people who are on the table or the people who come to see me as clients or online, my main thing is to help them to be fully in the body, so that I really feel their energy in their hands and their feet and in all the regions, and that everything is very fluid and I want to say symmetry, but not symmetry in the body, more symmetry in the energies, and flow, like the spin of the chakras and the flow and the aura and the colors and everything. And there's not any kind of dark patches or clouds. So yeah, I mean, that's my main focus for those beings. But my other main focus is to teach people how to work with energy in this way, and to feel it in themselves and to feel it in others, and to also let go of outcomes, because that's the key. When we let go of the outcome of what the other's experience is going to be, then we actually fully receive the codes for both beings, or if it's the group, and everyone receives them. So I've actually started to call myself a weaver and not a healer, because I've started to believe that the word healer means I'm doing something to you, and really I'm never doing anything to you. In fact, there's no separation, but also that the information or the codes that are coming in through source or from source, which is also not separate from us, is coming in for both equally.
Yeah.
And that's so beautiful, because I think when we talk about going back to my awakening, working with each person and receiving the codes that come through for them and me has been so transformative. And so that's another reason that not just for kind of humanity, but I mean, yes, for humanity in multiple levels, but the reason for people to learn to weave with energy is for themselves, despite the fact that, and of course the self is the other, but the people think that they are altruistic or they want to help the other, or they think, oh, I don't want to help the other, I need to focus on myself, but none of that matters. So I just feel really that our collective being is in this process of such beautiful coming together and shifting, and everything is starting to be really crystal clear what is happening.
Yeah, I love that term, actually, the weaving. And it's interesting you say that, because I just seem to use that word a lot at the moment. It just really seems key to a lot of the work that we're doing. And I haven't really considered using that in work terms, but I haven't felt that comfortable really with the word. I'll say that I do healing work, but I don't really call myself a healer.
Right. I
Because
still do, but it's not in alignment, or it's more sort of so that people can meet us where they're at, and then they then they can learn from there, I think.
Yeah.
It's really interesting how the language is shifting.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I really love that. So do you use light language? Because when light language was first coming through for me, I was often doing massage as well, and I would massage with stones, mainly with balls of hematite.
Wow.
And I would also do energy work too. And so when I work on the body and I can feel, you can feel the muscle and you can feel it stuck. So I'll do the kind of pressure work on that area, and then just place my hands there and feel the energy of it. How does it feel? Is it releasing? Is it stuck? And then you feel the body starting to release everything. And for me, that feels prickly. I can feel like the energy coming through my hands, and you can feel the direction of it. It's coming out of the body and through my hands. And the light language started coming through because I would say that I sing into the body to people as well, and singing tones. And at first, I didn't really have the courage, let's say, to allow the words to come through, the light language words, but I would mouth them. Because if you think them, it's not always the same. I found that if you think light language, it's not always the same as what comes out of your mouth. So I would kind of mouth it, but with no sound. And that worked really powerfully as well, which is, it's kind of good to know for people as well, that they can kind of, bring that in. And it would just instantly clear the body and just really activate those areas, and really, just particularly when areas are stuck, when the energy is stuck and it's not really shifting. that over the time
Yes.
has probably become the most powerful tool. So in your general, does it vary really in your general work whether you use light language?
Everything varies so much. I find every session is so unique. And I also work with children, babies, and children with autism. So one session can be like a lot of crying and, you know, diaper changes and teething, and another session can be like me going into this, I don't know, samadhi, or this place of divine bliss and almost like ecstatic bliss and observance. So the variety is profound and probably the maximum extremes. And I've also worked with people who are dying, or people who are in Alzheimer's facilities, where each time they meet me, they don't remember me. And so just really fascinating. But so I would say with the light language, it actually comes through a lot with people who are having trouble settling, or where there's just needs to be more movement of energy. But it often comes through at the beginning, and it started with just my hands. So early on, when I was just, I think I first studied Reiki in somewhere between 2001 and 2003. I can't quite remember. But with Reiki, I would always feel this light right here, like I was receiving sunlight, or light was coming in through the first eye. And at that time, I didn't even know these things in this way exactly, but it would activate something and my whole system would be different. And so then how I would work, and that was even actually, so I had done the Reiki training, but if I was just doing a massage session on someone, it wouldn't even be Reiki, but that started to just happen all the time. So this light would come through, and then my being would shift, and then I was working in a different way. And so that way seemed to always affect people differently when that would come through. So then it started to evolve that like I would never be able to close a session without like all this stuff coming through my hands. And it would be like mudras, or things were like happening super fast. The person didn't know what was happening. They were usually pretty much asleep. And I'm either at their feet or at their head, and all of these things would come through. And it was almost like a blessing and a closing. And then I would just be so grateful and bow so deeply. And I didn't speak out loud at that time because they were so deep, it would probably startle them. So light language, when it started to come through me, it was very silent, but it was very much in the hands. And then it started to come through at different times in the treatment, that it wasn't just at the closing. And so then the sound could come through really comfortably because the person was still awake. And now I just don't even worry about the person. Like, I mean, I worry about them, but if the sound comes through and they're deep, it's okay. But it used to be something that would concern me. But that's going back like 10 years or more. But it's really interesting because it's so interesting how with light language, when I speak light language now, I speak it to the dog and the cat, I speak it to my kids, I speak it all the time. Some people look at me funny because I'll be, in a grocery store lineup and I'm speaking light language to myself, but I'm not worried because there is no other. So like, I no longer have any worry about what people think of me or people thinking I'm crazy, because I am crazy, but we all are. Like, it's just, we are meant to be these beings who express through our bodies, and we're meant to receive, and we're meant to communicate in ways that we're not fully open to yet. And so the more we do it, the more it's going to be, and it is already happening, that it's just blasting open in the consciousness. And it's so I'm trying. I know Richard Rudd says excitement is not the CD, it's the gift. So it's like, anyway, I'm very happy and optimistic about the place we are at this time right now. Mm-hmm.
I love what you said about because that's how it started for me as well. When I first went to Byron Bay in Australia, I would be doing you know, this kind of thing on the body, and what felt like different Reiki symbols. It felt like they were new Reiki symbols that were coming through. And this is where I definitely would use the word weaving, because what has come to me over time is that is exactly what I'm doing. I'm weaving these frequencies into that, like a spider weaving a web. I'm weaving it into their web, into their energy field. And it wasn't for me until last year, really. No, sorry, the year before, because we just changed a year, that the written light language started coming through. And I used to, I actually saw it, you know, I would sometimes do it with sparklers and I would try and see when I did it. Yeah.
Wow. Such a good idea.
And you mentioned doing it on people who are at the end of their life as well. And when I was still nursing, Jacqueline Williams, my Reiki master, she had started doing voluntary work. She'd done it for a couple of years, actually. And I think she's Reiki voluntary work, this was, in the women's hospital next door. So I did my level 2 with her in 2001. And she'd been doing it a couple of years already, which is, you know, that's really quite a miracle as well. So we connected and we did our level 2 together, and she really, really wanted to bring Reiki into hospitals. So we started doing work together. And because I was a senior sister and I was wearing, you know, like the uniform, the nurse's uniform, and I'd worked at that hospital for so many years as well, and was fairly known in the hospital, so that gave me a bit more credibility than if I'd just been there, you know, in my own clothes. So we used to do quite a bit of work together in the main hospital, which was a massive teaching hospital, very closely affiliated with the medical school just down the road.
Wow.
So this was at Manchester Royal Infirmary. And then I took over because Jacqueline had some health stuff going on. And the two teams that used to refer to me were the palliative care team and the pain control team.
Wow.
And I remember Jacqueline had a lot of amazing experiences, and I did as well, but there's one in particular that I remember her talking about, which was a patient with sickle cell disease. And sickle cell is where the red blood cells are kind of like an odd shape, and they don't pass through the bones very easily and through the joints, and they get stuck, and it's really, really painful. It's a really, really painful condition, and normally they're on pethidine, like they need controlled drugs for the pain. It's so severe. And she did Reiki on this one gentleman, and he was absolutely blown away. He had never had the pain reduced during sickle cell crisis as when he'd actually received Reiki from her.
Wow.
And when I used to do it on people who were at the end of their lives, and so this was the palliative care referral, and the palliative care teams just wanted anything that would make people comfortable. You know, they were really quite open to different things because that was their aim, to provide comfort for someone at the end of their life.
So fantastic.
Yeah, and it's such an honor, and you can feel sometimes that people are hanging on to their life because they're so scared. They're so scared of what's on the other side, like what happens afterwards. And I'd go in and they were completely relaxed. They'd go into the space that you were talking about before, and you know, either in sleep or deep sleep or just in that space between, but they were gone at least partially from this realm, and you could just see them start to relax. And I feel that they were kind of taken to that same place, so they knew then what it was going to be like when they actually died, and they were no longer scared, and it really helped them to let go. And I would often do it on their relatives as well, because and that was amazing to do, because obviously you're not changing what's happening to their relative. They're still going through the same thing. They're losing in their mind, you know, they're losing the person that's dying. But they would say that instead of feeling like they were underwater, like here, it was like they could just get their head above. And, you know, it was really comforting for them as well.
Wow.
Mm.
So amazing.
Yeah.
It's so amazing to see, even just with a guided meditation, how someone can shift from, you know, rolling, like wheeling down the hall into surgery and being anxious to go into surgery and really being afraid of dying or being afraid of pain or all things, to just shift into a space where they really know, like they know that not even that everything's going to be okay, but they're just in this knowing of something other than self. And it's really hard to put words to it, but you see that shift in someone when and they can be really quick, or it can take a lot more to get someone to that place, depending on, I guess, what they're holding maybe, or their mind, or yeah. And it's interesting with Alzheimer's, I find it's very interesting because the mind isn't controlling in the same kind of way in some ways, but in other ways there's a lot of anxiety. There's in some ways there's more anxiety, and it's interesting because they don't even have some of the things that would, like it, I just find it really interesting and fascinating, and just working with different changes in the brain and different ways that the brain works, or when, like, what activates the amygdala or what activates that hindbrain to be really active and in fight or flight so strongly.
Yeah.
And what really, you know, brings us into our parasympathetic functioning and the sympathetic kind of turning off. And yeah, it's really magical. It's quite magical. And I always remember when my babies were little, they're almost 13 and 10 now, but I remember there was this sleep energy that we could create, and I would like not pretend to sleep, but if they were a little agitated or not comfortable, if I curled up with them and sort of pretended to sleep, but really just brought in that sleep energy and really snuggled them, but in a really sleepy way, and they would just fall asleep. Like it was just like it's all energy. So it's like if we embody it, then it will shift more easily.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think with Alzheimer's and dementia, it's really interesting. And I remember when I was a student nurse and doing my elderly care, and I'd be fascinated because they were completely somewhere else. You know, they were seeing something else from years ago. They were fully immersed in that scene. And it's really interesting, where do they go? It's like part of them is missing from this dimension. And that is actually what I feel happens. It's like part of their consciousness is already in the next dimension. And what they're doing there, who knows, you know, what other work they may be doing there. But it's almost like they're slipping away kind of slowly, but part of them is already there. But it's a slow kind of, instead of when you die and you're just there, it's kind of like, I want to say the word threading. It's like a thread kind of goes already, and more of that thread is kind of there until the whole reel.
So, right. Yeah, it's such an interesting process, and it's not new in any way. Like, it's very prevalent right now, but it's not new. If you read, really, really old books, it's very, very much been with us for a very long time. So yes, and you see it in animals too, when they can live long enough, right? So yeah, it's really interesting. I know I find all of the way that energy weaves and how we all interact with each other and how we have this perception of needing to clear, let's say, our shadows, or do all this certain type of work that's very mental a little bit. And it's all very powerful and beautiful, and I do so much of it, and I love shamanic journeying, and it's such a beautiful, it's all part of me, and I do all of it. But I find it really interesting when then I observe beings like babies or elderly or individuals who have they don't have stories in some capacity, and then in other capacity, they did do all this shadow work and clearing and all this beautiful stuff where they've developed, I'll give a really beautiful example of my a very close family member who's a Buddhist, and she had a very powerful devout practice, and she was so progressed and deepened in her practice, and very awakened in one sense, and then she developed a very heavy cancer, and went very, very, very deep into that process, and the unfolding that happened, and communications, and all the things that came in. And that doesn't, because time isn't real and it doesn't exist, it doesn't really change the soul, but there's this element of as they pass over, they're not in that place that they were in when everything was very, awakened, how we see it or how we think of it. So yeah, it's all really quite interesting and magical to look at a lifespan from birth to death, and then know that that timeline is not real, and just it's so the progression of the soul and everything, it's quite beautiful.
A beautiful image before of because the hospital that I used to work in was 250 years old.
Wow.
So a lot of things had happened in that hospital's lifetime. Like a lot of pain had been felt and expressed in that hospital. Most of it's been rebuilt actually since then. But when I was there when I started in 1984, that was actually up until me leaving, that old part of the hospital was still there. And often when you walk in a hospital, you just feel heavy straight away. Like you can feel the energy of the place, because it never gets cleared.
Right.
I think unintentionally, even before I knew about these things, I think I was often kind of clearing these places.
Yes.
But you would have to do it, so it would be a big job to fully clear a hospital, because it's it's in the bricks, it's in every cell of the hospital, really. But just imagine, because we attuned something like 100 and I think it was about 170 people, staff members were attuned to Reiki. That was a lot of nurses. There was a few doctors, some physios, some dietitians. I don't think we had speech therapy. A lot of catering staff and a lot of secretarial staff as well, which is awesome, because it's kind of then spread throughout the whole building. It's not just on the wards.
Wow.
But imagine like a proper Reiki hospital where crystals in the corners, not considered.
It's already happened. I've seen it.
It would be
like temple spaces with amethyst healing rooms and rose quartz entrances, and I've experienced it in the Akashic realm, so it's definitely already here. It's just a matter of the timelines moving through, or however that unfolds. But so beautiful. Wow. I was thinking of, when you were saying that, I was thinking of all of the grid work that I had been doing over the last 8 months, and just being in places like Mount Shasta and Maui, and different points in time, like Robin and I would, or Robin and Sophia and I would go to like the top of the mountain to see the sunrise, and then at the same time, Vaughn was on, the coast on the beach, and Alyssa would be on Mount Shasta, and then another friend would be in, the area around Santa Barbara, and Ojai, where the fires have been. It's just so beautiful how there's just like clearings happening in the macro and the micro in all these different places, and there are times when we'll be kind of like stuck in a traffic jam and we wonder why we're in this traffic jam, but then we realize we've been sitting beside the children's, like the Sick Kids Children's Hospital in Toronto, and no wonder we're sitting there because of all this light moving through the systems and how the bodies channel so much light, especially when we're attuned to it and when we work with it all the time. It's just so beautiful to be around beings that are like I think of the hospital as a being, or any kind of collective or building or container. And so that's really like tuning into the entire being, and then the individuals as well, the cells within. It's so powerful. Wow, so cool. Yes, I mean, definitely, I have so much optimism for how everything's moving. And Sandra Walters talks about this sometimes, how there's just maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago, it really wasn't even spoken about, but now there's like people just like moving around the grids all the time, and I've done it too, where I'll be in Joshua Tree and I'll know I have to be in Sedona by a certain date, or I just know that that's the next coordinate, and it's just, you just kind of follow that guidance and be where we need to be, or where we're called to be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you done grid work for?
I mean, I don't know, but definitely the last 8 months has been powerfully intentionally moving through places. But before that, it happened all the time. I would even just drive out of the city of Ottawa to like the Carp region, or drive from Ottawa to Toronto, and so much would happen in the energies. So I think before we knew we were doing it, but definitely this past, I mean, I guess actually it was exactly a year ago, I was in Portland, Oregon, with a beautiful group of women who one of my amazing mentors and teachers was holding a women's retreat, a Akashic retreat. And that was a really powerful time, being on the West Coast for the first time since I'd been 17. So I think when I was 17, I traveled to Vancouver and all the way down the coast to, and I think I've probably always been doing it. I don't know. I always have trouble with timeline questions, or like time questions, because it feels like it's always happened, but then I know that there was a point when things became more accessible, or the channel became clearer. Yeah. But now when I think back to those early memories of childhood, because it's like everything has collapsed, it's like, oh, the channel was already clear, because the distortion is always the not real, or the distortion, or anything that's not completely clear is really not there. I mean, that's my perception of it. So then when I'm in a space where there is anything happening, that's how it's always been. So it's funny, I can't separate anymore. But definitely for like this, the year of 2019 was all about grid points. And because so powerful. And how Sedona keeps calling me back. Like I trained in myofascial release there with John Barnes quite a few years ago. That was my first experience there. I'd been in Arizona before that as a teenager, and already had such a strong love for Arizona. And then, wow, I just keep getting called back. It feels like when I'm outside of it feels like being inside those red rocks is like being in like a cradle, being a baby in a cradle. And it just feels like so supported and nourished by like the iron rich blood rocks, as well as like the quartz bed. And then there's this Lemurian energy that is so powerfully strong you wouldn't expect, but it is an ancient seabed. And you see seashells all the time on the ground. It's just so interesting. It's such an interesting place. It's so beautiful.
I was just going to say where I am now in North Yorkshire, in England. This was subtropical at some point in the Earth's history. Wow. Yeah, it's very, very old land here. There's lots of ammonites and evidence of dinosaurs here as well.
Wow, I feel it's very, very, very old. Like I feel a lot of energy of elementals, elemental beings around where you are. Very, very, very connected to. I'm like actually I see stuff all the time, but when I'm thinking about it and talking to you, then there's like little sparkle beings that are popping up. Wow.
And I think dragon energy's always been strong here as well.
Wow.
Do you connect? I mean, obviously you connect with the fairies and the elementals and unicorns as well, I suspect.
I was a horse and unicorn girl, like growing up all the way through as a child. And dragons more recently as an adult. Well, I don't know, actually. Maybe always as well. Definitely, I feel like a dragon a lot of the time.
Yeah. Are you aware of dragons when you do your treatments, or is it more in the earth work or your own kind of personal work? When do they tend to
all of it? They come in all different times. I see a lot in the sky. Robin and I have so much fun together because we're just like, we have to like really like be where we're at, and then when we're driving we're like, wow. But I see a lot in the sky, especially, well, day and night, but at night the auras that I see around the trees, and then just I feel like I see beings always when I'm working on people now. The other day I was working on a man, and I saw he was only 20. He's from Paris, and there were like 2 or 3 purple sparkles, and they kept popping up. Like sometimes 2 would pop up and sometimes 3 would pop up, and they were speaking to me, and they were his future children. And they were so playful and loving, and they were around him all the time, and so they wanted him to know that they were with him. And yeah, so when dragons come up, they just come up. They're just so strongly present, and often I just like morph into one. And I just am a dragon, for I don't know how long, but I just know I feel that feeling really strongly. And the fairy realm is very, very strong. Like when we were at Mount Shasta, the fairies were always in certain places, like Panther Meadow and Bunny Flats. There's so many, but yeah, and like depending on like what energies are there, it's so special.
Have you seen tiny dragons? I've seen like
I have. I love them. They're so special and amazing. And I've seen massive ones, and then I've seen tiny ones. I can't think of when I've seen them, but they come in sometimes, and they're so special. And eggs, dragon eggs for sure. And when the light language is coming through, you like, sometimes I tune into what is happening. Sometimes it's just very present, what is coming through. And other times I sort of need to like consciously think about what is this that's coming through. And very commonly there will be a dragon energy or fairy realm energy. It's interesting, unicorns don't tend to come in through light language for me. They're very, very present, but they're not speaking through me. A lot of sea, there's a lot of oceanic energy that comes through as well. But yes, it's interesting because when I'm with a tree, the tree, and like there's a beautiful tree in Lahaina on Maui, and it's an old banyan tree, and I recorded a transmission there because wow, I could have stayed like with that tree for days, just like sleep at its feet. I spent a lot of time with that tree, but the tree gave so many messages up through the roots and down through, and the transmissions that came through that tree were so profound. I feel like I definitely work with tree energy a lot, and certain trees are very, very powerful. There's one actually in Quebec near where I'll be, and this particular tree, you walk up to it and almost, I don't know, 2 meters from the trunk, everything falls away. Like all the stories fall away. I'm fully awake and aware. I'm not in a trance state at all. I just walk towards the tree. And as soon as I reach like a certain kind of aura of the tree and I go within that, I no longer exist. And it's just beautiful. And that tree is, I'm definitely going to go visit that tree within the next week or so now that I'm back in Canada, because it's really powerful. So yeah, those are my, I mean, I think of everything as a being these days. So, you know, like this little probably tiger's eye here is a little being, but this pencil is also a little being. And so they all have their vibration. And yes, this Suki, yes. And so I can't actually separate out something anymore and not be loving towards it. So even like the pencil, it's sort of become that way. So it becomes what do I put my attention on, or what am I putting my attention on? And it's all about clearing what maybe takes our attention away from something that's very nourishing for us, or very like sparkly. And actually that's one of my passions right now, is because I'm often in a state of active kundalini, and I feel like people talk about it in different ways. So I don't know if I'm talking about it in the way that maybe a yogi would speak of it, but there's an aspect of like below the root chakra and around the root chakra, there's like activity always, and then it's always moving up, and I can always feel that flow of light, almost like warm light that's always moving upwards. And I feel like that's actually our natural state. So there's like a combination of like, and some would call it arousal as well. Like people think of kind of like sexual arousal as being something separate, and that we like have that and then we don't have that. But in fact, when the kundalini is active and the channel is open and we can receive really well and transmit, and we are kind of like open conduits for transmitting and receiving, then we should be in a state of arousal, because that's actually like the flow and the toroid magnetic field and how our systems are supposed to function and flow. And so there's this like movement of energy that's always happening, and I think of it because because now I'm at a place where even when I'm having maybe an emotional day and there's a lot of tears or a lot coming up or anger might be coming up, I still have that active energy. So it's not connected. Whereas how it used to be was like maybe my emotions would come up, or I would think of it as like a frequency drop, and then that sparkliness or that Kundalini energy would drop down, but now it's sort of consistent. So it's really interesting because I find there's always ways to be more in a higher frequency, and that word doesn't always resonate for me, but when we talk about kind of being in alignment so that everything is like really like, I wish I had words, just like sinking and fluid and sparkly, so sparkly, that can always have, that can drop. But there's like something else that doesn't drop anymore. And I know that everyone has access to this, ecstatic bliss that of course can be more amplified at certain points in time, like especially like when channeling light language or meditating. But that ecstatic bliss that can be with us all the time, so that we can be in this state of moving through life and everything is flowing, and we're meeting the world from a place, like from a heart space, but it's more active than that. There's more sparkle. So that's actually what I'm interested in, is allowing people to know that they really can be in this place all the time, and then receive so much. Like I'm looking right behind you at those codes, and they're just like, whoa, like I almost have to like make sure I don't look at them too much, or even like the light codes like on your face. And yeah, I mean, I do, I still am looking at them a lot and receiving so much, but sometimes I want to be able to speak words.
Like cover them up.
Yeah. They're just so incredible. But yeah, so if Robin and I are at the beach, or Sophia and I are at a forest, or there's all these, so many things in nature that are strongly received as codes. But it's just so divine and so beautiful to just be wherever, like in a mall, which often we can be really, we don't want to be in a mall necessarily because it's not as in sync with our physical, the nature of our bodies. But we can still have this really aligned, active system that's very, very, very vibrant and sparkly. So that's one of my current missions, is to teach people to lead and to teach people to be sparkly all the time, and not without being in the ups and downs of emotion, because that's part of being human. We are supposed to experience everything, but we don't need to dwell, or we don't need anymore to we no longer need to not be in an awakened, active channel place when we are in grief, sorrow, anger, all of the emotions. There's no separation. They're emotions, and we can be with all of it. It can all be with us at the same time.
Yeah.
And then we feel so much more nourished when we're in those places, so that we don't get so in a dark place. If we have anger with sparkle, or sadness with sparkle, and I'm only saying sparkle because sometimes I just don't know the word, but that we can be there and really feel it and really go in and experience the grief, because there's a lot of grief at this time on the planet. We're all grieving deeply, deeply, deeply. And there's no way that we should avoid that. It's very important. It's very, very powerful. So so yeah, but so that, anyway, that's my my mission at the moment. Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to ask you about the, I don't know if you would call it a course that you're putting on, but before I do, you reminded me, and I'd completely forgotten about this, that one of my students in Australia, he was actually Scottish, and he had learnt something called Celtic Reiki, and I've never heard of it since, and I've only just remembered about it, and that was connecting with the trees. It was
Wow.
the energy that you connected with. So I must check that out and see if it's still, you know, because some things don't always take off on a big scale, and I'd never heard of it, but assumed that was because I was in Australia. But I'm quite intrigued by that. So on the 14th of February, you are creating a container for people, but I'll let you share more about that, what it is, and how people can join if they wish.
Thank you. So yes, we are, we often hold these beautiful light language groups on, and different types of groups, actually. They've had different purposes, but we've often held group containers on WhatsApp, which is some people may know it. It's usually on a phone, and it's a texting app, but you can send pictures, videos, links, as well as written. And it is very, it's been very powerful to hold these group containers within WhatsApp, because when we have groups on, for example, a platform like Facebook, for the interaction between the individuals, someone needs to make a post, or they need to, or they comment on somebody else's post. But what I love about these group containers is that it doesn't have to feel so big to share. We can just share back and forth in messenger format, and it becomes this beautiful flow of like hundreds of messages per day that just flow down on this thread of the chat, with everyone just sharing openly and commenting on each other's, and being really free with knowing that they don't need to create something that's seen in that way as like a post, and they can just, so we've been creating these groups, and it's been really profound, the level at which people feel nourished by these groups. Mm-hmm. So this particular one is 2 weeks where I'm working with light language, and helping everyone to activate their channel. If they are already speaking light language regularly, then it's just a beautiful space for them to meet others, share, and allow transmissions to flow through. But then also this particular time is like a really, really special occasion, because we have 8 beautiful guests who are coming through, and Denise is one of them. I'm so grateful. And the guests will each have like a day, and some of the guests will even be engaged in the group if they have the WhatsApp platform, or if they're a lot of people are traveling at the moment, so some won't be, but it's really a powerful 2 weeks where everyone will be having this beautiful space to share and receive, and there will be a transmission from me every day, as well as little kind of exercises to help you open up to the channel, and also just help activate each other. So what often will happen is everyone in the group will share in a particular way on a particular day, and I often bring in energy work and teach energy work as well, because it's really, there's no separation between energy work and light language and code. So we share with each other, but then everyone receives from everyone. So when there's 10 people in a group, that we, then there's like, you receive, sometimes 15 transmissions in a day, and it just becomes, it amplifies the energy, and it amplifies the transformation, and it amplifies the abilities and the confidence in ourselves as the attendees to feel comfortable sharing our gifts with people in a really safe, loving container where they know no one's going to judge them because everyone's doing the same thing. And when we do have these fears, then we just speak them in the chat, and then we all, encourage each other. And it's so beautifully loving, and it's so powerful how the beings come together and then continue to have friendships with each other outside of the container. So I'm really, really, very happy about this one, where we're bringing in these channels who are all very, 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 very comfortable bringing through code as part of their work in the world, or their dharma, let's say. So yes, it's quite a magical time right now. And so it's starting on February 14th, but actually at the end of the day in the Eastern time zone. So it will officially kind of like, the Valentine's Day is the day of like adding everyone into the group and kind of making sure it's all set up. But the Saturday, it will be kind of where everybody introduces themselves, all the individuals who attend. Yeah, so that is, I think, and the other piece that I should say is that I'm really excited to create, where I'm really looking to launch a platform for light workers to teach out of. And so one of, and many other beautiful organizations are doing a lot of really powerful work in the field of like sharing light workers and bringing us into kind of like soulology, for example. There's Carrie Samadhi, and then the woman in the UK, remind me of her name again.
Chini Mulan?
Yes. They're just such beautiful human beings, are just bringing us into view, so that we can all see all these beautiful light workers who are creating and channeling what they're bringing through for the planet. And I feel strongly that it's already happened. I see it, that there's this place where light workers can teach from, and it just feels like this is a little pilot project, this little tiny group with all these guest speakers, that we can use some of the funding from this little course, or and then maybe build on that and create more of these types of offerings, that some of the money will go towards creating this hub or this platform, so that then light workers have an ease of teaching from a space that is created by light workers as a like collective, collaborative, cooperative type organization. So that's the vision, and then we'll just keep creating to build momentum in that direction, as well as having some live events, likely in Sedona. So yeah, so those are kind of that's sort of the flow that guidance is really bringing through at this time.
And how can people get hold of you for that? What's the best way?
For this little class, there is Expand Your Light at the moment on Facebook, or Mira Star, Miracle Star, on Facebook. And there is an event posted at the moment in Expand Your Light that is often, yeah, I think that's probably the best way at the moment, the event.
Now, we have already gone over time, but I'm happy to carry on if you are.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's up to you.
Well, I would love, I'd love for you to share some light language.
Oh, thank you. I would love to. Okay. So as you're listening, which often will happen for people, you may feel light language coming through yourself. And if you're in a space where you feel safe to allow it through, then just go with that and allow sound to come through, or allow your hands to move or your body to move. So just take some breaths and kind of tune into the space. Tisut ko andianai kai usata ishtada kayan ko nikara ai ko indiai so nishko ayada andiana ayakal ko indiana ayosa mio ka ahainda aushtika andiana nayosa yanda kayo ko isata kandiana nayosa Yao ka ai andai sto ko indiago ondi ai ko stianiano koniana ai so there's a big green dragon that's like right in front of my face looking at me. Woo! Yeah, ko India daga Indiana oyustika Andia ista kondiana na sausta golden eyes. Mio oinga aindia iso oidiana ekai satakandiana sa ianda yoshko oindia isa. Ai kita ai stikarara kurai karai skustane ko nikarai stikarari karai nikarai sa wusti karai nikarai sa. Okay, I'm being told that Denise has some codes coming through. If you wish.
Of course. Kihium bod agust it ir und aka ist. Hollemako namakered namaka ot uikut und akrelekja ot uist. Kolerud unta akurlek barad ekibert eret så da. Helerud namakaler. Makast och hod ord. Ka namakelered namaka ast. Oleret ikitut ust naka. Heleon namakul iterud ut oi. Honamai. Makalli urut usta. Ana makille kabarat anto urut uko urt oi ma ele. Hiele urut on namake urut uik barat ako a. Hi ile arad on namaka uyet arad. Kolere on ist arad ia. Ana makuleet ana kost oi aba ans. Her en namakala ast uik ba. Ele kiaman kost. He eit I aka. Kule ant uista uhun namaka.
So ki anakara so tia gaena o ka aini na o tia sandai ka o tia na ai ka o Nikona aitiko otiana o Indiana nice shkotiana is koyataka. Niskite kara niskite koti strikte korariana kara esmuska. Nishu sit kara niti kara rotsta. Yakra aikotiata aishkoisaka andina aikai sos aikara yesaka aikotiana easarkonina naesa. Nishkoi kai ndiai poia atiana ea o sayo ikra andiai ko. Yana ako yesai ondiai ka atsia shteka ndianai ko.
Ke mare inta a ho oto merte era. Ana makelle kwada o hinna kille et wishtara la ma ata. Ana makelle koto inna ma hilea. E he no kulle host uit barat a. He lea no kunst a. Ilikarad ona maka astea en unapa. Ekile est ornama ka ana kustea. Hela kiellä on kolle parat ukuda. Ele kierrot on tuolla aarot onnama kanaki iesta. Hele janan kulle port unto tuita. Maki jälle kierrot unnama killakudu ust. Hele janu kulle järrot unnama iku. Ulla aret on toku utuja. Kullest aret an noko ust. Hele ja an tuo anama konama a. Jam ka et era. Kulla arat untuku pakist at eret I apa an uku oe apata. Japarat an dododoja tototosta.
Nishkor indiana koisti kara ya koista naina koreana kaisto mikara kara yeso to koreana kaisto ya a koista ano yo to poro o hoitika anyo o kondiana e kais koisti ni kara oye ai koisana india yo koya koi ashtuk andia shkotim diana kaya so shtika asinyana ko ikai kanoi sanai shko.
Oh wow, thank you, beautiful.
Thank you. The forest and the trees and the elementals came through really strongly. Wow. And a big blue dragon.
Nice. There was a lot of heat for me as well towards the last bit of what I shared.
I felt so much.
Yeah, I'll enjoy listening to that one again and just receiving it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before we close?
I guess I'd like to share that my modality is called pranic light weaving, and that is the just what comes through with the energies of all that comes through my system, and that my my path at this time right now is to teach pranic light weaving 1 in physical form in the area of Wakefield, Quebec in Canada, so that people can become light weavers. And I think that's probably all. The course is really an exciting, beautiful little sparkly pilot into a bigger realm of co-creation and community and connection between light workers around the planet. So if anyone has interest in also maybe being a sponsor or a donor in any way, this is definitely opening up into like bigger and bigger realms. It's really clear. So if you're interested in sort of getting in on the ground in terms of like maybe sponsorship or co-creation or support in some way, then just reach out to me or Denise, and yes, and I'm just so grateful for all of you on the planet who are tuning in to these sort of beautiful platforms that are bringing through so much light and beauty.
Thank you also to everyone who's been with us on the call, and for everyone who's going to tune in on the replay and on YouTube as well. But most of all, thank you to you, Miracle Star. It's been a beautiful, beautiful conversation. I'm sure we will have many, many more on this platform, and many, many more privately.
Thank you, thank you so much. Aloha.
Aloha. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye to Facebook land. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will see you soon.